Bike Riders stars Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, Michael Shannon, Tom Hardy, Boyd Holbrook, and Norman Reedus, amongst other people. After a chance encounter at a local ball, strong-willed Kathy is inextricably drawn to Benny, the newest member of the Midwestern motorcycle club, the Vandals, led by enigmatic Johnny. Much like the country around it, the club begins to evolve, transforming from a gathering place for local outsiders into a dangerous underworld of violence, forcing Benny to choose between Kathy and his loyalty to the club. I was really looking forward to the Bike Riders. I have a few friends who got to see this early, and most of them came out of it praising it. They had some criticisms for it, but most of them really liked it or loved it. So that's what made me really excited to go see the Bike Riders. And I think many of the performances in this movie are really, really good. Austin Butler gives a very subdued performance. He is very quiet, almost like he's calculating, taking things in, kind of assessing a different situation that he's in this movie, maybe thinking about, this is my life, but how do I also not make it my life? But what's more important, making it my life or not making it my life? Then you have Jodie Comer, who is honestly the standout performance. She is really, really good in this. Probably the best I've seen her since The Last Duel. Not sure if it tops her performance in The Last Duel, but she is really great here. Tom Hardy does his usual shtick with his voice, gives his voice a weird accent for some reason.
The Tom Hardy, they always sound like this in anything that he said, He does it as Venom, he does it in anything where he's portraying a Midwestern guy that lives in the United States of America.
But you know what? For the part, for the role, it worked, and I could actually understand him most of the time. There's a couple of lines where I'm just like, okay, Tom, you gotta roll that accent back a little bit, man. I can't understand what you're saying, but at least 95% of the time, I understood what he was saying, and it worked for what he was going for in this movie. And I do think that it is a solidly crafted movie. It's a very well-directed movie. Jeff Nichols, the director, definitely has a love for motorcycles and motorcycle club and the Midwest part of the country. He has a keen eye for all of that. I love his visual presentation in many of these scenes. It's really cool to look at, just to see the grimy, sludgy, dirty people and the hangout spots that encapsulate this movie. You really get a sense that this is motorcycle culture, but I think that that's where the praise for me stops, because while I do think that The Bike Riders is a solid enough movie, it never reaches the phase of being more than average. Unfortunately, I really wanted to love this movie, and I was let down significantly by the rest of this movie, much of it involving the writing and the narrative structure. It never reached the top heights for me, and it's a movie that feels like it should have. Unfortunately, despite having that visual presentation of motorcycle culture, I do feel like what the movie's themes are trying to represent here aren't indicative of motorcycle culture. In fact, it feels very generic. It feels very baseline. This is a very slow-paced movie. It was much slower than I was anticipating. And I can usually deal with that, but when many of your scenes are structured on the precipice of characters just sitting around in a bar, smoking cigarettes, drinking whiskey and beers, and talking about motorcycle culture, it's just like, that motorcycle club down there, we should probably do something about them. What do you think? Yeah, this cigarette's starting to burn out. I'm gonna light another one. It's just such a stereotypical, basic viewpoint of how people in motorcycle culture actually act, I feel like. I don't know. I'm not part of motorcycle culture. If you know any of this, feel free to comment in the comment section below as to what motorcycle culture actually is, and if this does feel like it goes beyond the basic stereotypes of what a biker is in a biker gang. I just felt like it didn't dive deep enough into its themes when it really should have. It just stays on the surface level of what it's trying to say. And with that, whenever the movie feels like it's about to dig into something deep, whenever it feels like the plot is trying to be bigger than it actually is, it really just reels it back and doesn't do much with anything. The story doesn't feel like it progresses, and because of that, I felt like I was just watching an extended episode of a motorcycle TV show like Sons of Anarchy or Mayans MC, or I just felt like I should have been watching a better motorcycle movie. something like The Wild One with Marlon Brando that this movie clearly takes inspiration from. The narrative choices here also left me very disconnected with the story, and here's why. Because Jodie Comer's character is essentially being interviewed throughout the whole movie, but when she's telling us events that happen in the movie, because she's telling us about past events, but there's many times where she's telling us about events where she wasn't present for, and that I felt an immediate disconnect from everything that was happening in this movie, from the rising actions to the buildup of the tension. I just left this movie feeling really unfazed and unnerved by anything. I didn't feel as if there was enough of that buildup of a story here that would make me have an emotional investment into what is being presented. It's a movie that feels like it's trying really hard to be the next big, like, crime drama classic, like a Scorsese classic. It wants to stand in that league, but it just misses on so many levels that it doesn't. So while I do feel like it is a solid movie, I was left extremely disappointed by The Bike Riders. It's a slow, excruciating movie that I think could have had a lot more to say about motorcycle culture than it actually does if it had some different narrative structure and narrative choices to help propel a story forward instead of making it feel like it pulls it back far too often. I think The Bike Riders is good with half a bucket of popcorn. So if you guys have seen The Bike Riders, let me know what you think of it. Massively disappointed. Wanted this to be one of my favorites of the year, and unfortunately it isn't. Whatever you think of it, let me know in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.